what I'm going to talk about is my implementation of Piazza as a really, really nice communication tool for my Chem 343 and 345 class. The first semester I launched this, I had a TA sort of dedicated to helping me out with it a little bit, in that he was teaching 3 discussions when all the others were teaching 4, and so he spent a little bit extra time for me helping develop this, and so that was definitely instrumental at the beginning. But now it's just sort of become a part of the course, and I'll talk about how we're using it. I have just a splash page up here of like, this is what you see when you log in. It tells you what you haven't done in a nice little display, and so there's one unread post, one unanswered question, and one unresolved follow-up. And this actually sort of is what Piazza is all about. It's a place for students to make posts, instructors to make posts, and then a combination of instructors and students to respond to them with the opportunity for some follow-up discussion. It distinguishes itself from other chat tools in a couple of ways, and like discussion boards in a couple of ways that I think are really important and sort of help it be a much more focused tool for communication in a course, and so I'll explain about that. So where I was using this was a first and second semester organic chemistry. The most important point is number 4 on here, that this is a very hard course and one that people are terrified of when they start. And so students are really motivated for anything that they think might give them an edge. And so I gave them absolutely no credit for participating in their usage of Piazza, but I think you'll see that a lot of them found it very helpful. And philosophically, I think if you're going to introduce a tool, it should be useful enough that people are going to want to use it rather than being sort of forced into it. And you're going to see we got some pretty big usage. My last semester, we had over 2,000 individual either posts or follow-ups or answers to questions in a course of 220 students. So that was a pretty big usage for an optional tool. I have 2 to 3 teaching assistants each semester. We meet for 3 lectures a week and 1 discussion a week. So our discussion time is rather limited for how difficult the course is and how problem-solving intensive the course is. So my goal was to try to figure out how to communicate better with students and really to reduce the workload on me initially. I used to get tons of emails from students, and as soon as I responded to one, they realized, oh, email's great, he'll respond, and they just kind of kept emailing me, which is great because they were getting questions answered, they were thinking about things, but it was definitely a drain on my time. And students have this fancy way of not CCing multiple instructors in one email, but emailing them all the same email separately, and then each of us would respond, which seemed like a really redundant bit of work. And so I really saw this as a way to just stop getting the same email over and over again and having to answer it over and over again, and having multiple instructors answering the same question. So Piazza advertised itself as an incredibly easy, completely free question and answer platform. And it really is incredibly easy, so that lived up to it. It's FERPA compliant. It passes all the things that it needs to for us to be able to use it. Initially, I was really saddened by one thing that I found to be missing. I'm an organic chemist, so I only communicate in pictures. We can use words, and I guess words are important, but communicating ibuprofen does a much better job by drawing the structure of ibuprofen than saying it. We can understand its reactivity, we can understand its structure. There's no native drawing tool for chemists in Piazza, and so I was kind of disappointed by that. It doesn't integrate with ChemDraw, so I'm like, oh, this is a terrible drawback. I don't know if we're going to be able to use it. It turns out all of my misgivings were kind of stupid, and the students immediately got around it like it was nothing. So I was concerned. The students, they have smartphones, it turns out, and I'll show you that they got around this real fast. So anyhow, that's what Piazza is. It's totally linked in with D2L, which is great. And you've all experienced that as you've been clicking around. You can just go to the communications pull-down menu, and it's right there. And so at the beginning of the semester, I copy the class list out of D2L, click on that link, and basically just copy and paste right in, and it adds everyone to the group, which is very convenient. The most important thing to do before the semester starts, I've found, is to set up categories for students to tag their posts. That way they can both search for, I need help on problem set 16, so I click on problem set 16. They can also search by topic, but it's really convenient to have these things labeled. And so I have quizzes, midterms, and problem sets, and I basically made those the categories. It was simple. It took just a few minutes, and it was easy to set up. It's pretty straightforward, and it will even generate some sort of what it thinks you want the categories to be, as like problem set 1, problem set 2. And so it was very, very simple. The most important thing, which is where one of my colleagues in the chemistry department failed at, and really failed in the implementation of this, this tool, you have to tell the students that you're not answering questions via email that are content related. And I still do get like logistic related emails from students and sort of course structure emails, and those are fine. But if students think they can sort of side channel and send you an email, they're just going to keep doing that. So we were upfront and told them absolutely no content related emails to me or the TAs. I believe my TAs have all stuck to that. I know I have. Occasionally at the start of the term, I will get an email from a student that's a content question, and I just respond with, I'd love to answer that, post it on Piazza, I'll respond later today. And they do, and it's simple, and it's not a big deal. And really no one seems to be offended, or at least no one has expressed that they are offended they can't email it. So here's what it looks like. And I'll actually roll through my current class in a second and show you some active stuff. But the layout's pretty simple. On the left over here is a list of posts. And there, in bold, there's the title. The one in red down here doesn't have an answer. So it sort of alerts you to that. That actually corresponds to those red exclamation marks on the upper right with the one unread post, one unanswered question, and then somewhere there's an unresolved follow-up. You'll notice that there are these great green and orange and gray icons over there. That actually indicates what's been done for that post. It keeps track of green boxes for student answer, orange boxes for instructor answer, gray is for nobody's answered the question yet. And what's really cool, and not on this screen, oh, no, there it is. There's one right there where there's a green student answer with a check mark on it. It has the ability for any of the instructors to endorse the student answer, meaning that's the right one. Everyone should believe that and ignore whatever anyone else said, which is actually pretty important and one of the benefits of this tool. It's also one of its drawbacks, actually. And I realized pretty quickly I wanted a tool that would help students in their problem solving of organic chemistry and help them learn organic chemistry. Well, the good news is there's usually one correct answer to the question. This tool is designed to funnel people to that correct answer. This is not a tool that's designed for philosophical discussions about life or about policy or about how people feel about things. This is really a tool that's designed to help people figure out what they know and what they don't know and kind of wiki style get to some sort of reasonable response. And when that wiki style response is good, hopefully the instructor will go, yes, that's the answer, and that's fine. So that's that. I have an example of when you click on one of the posts, and I blacked out their names in the boxes there. But here's an example post where a student wanted to know about hydroboration and why it's a sin addition. And so the student posted that question and wanted to know something about the stereochemistry. So that's that top part up here. Then there was a good student answer, which I endorsed, and so there's that green text underneath that says an instructor, me, endorsed this answer. And in this case, there were no follow-ups, but there's room down below for there to be sort of follow-up responses. And oftentimes there are, certainly not always. But the general layout is really, really simple. You have all of the questions on the left. You've got the active question on the top, the student response down below, and that's it. I mean, this is just a really simple tool in that regard. It nicely keeps track of usage, so you can sort of pay attention to what's happening sort of at a glance. Make some pretty graphs for the aesthetic value, I suppose. But this is the entire tool, so it's pretty straightforward and simple. Here's what we got out of, I think this is towards the end of last semester's course. Right now there are It looks like 1,786 contributions listed. If you look at the bold lines across the top, 363 different independent questions were asked throughout the term at this point. We topped out at about 2,200 contributions. So this is towards the end. You can tell I've got a couple of super users. There's 5 listed over on the left. One of those people is responsible for 106 contributions at the moment. So he really gets his money's worth out of this tool and asks a lot of good questions, some of which were brilliant and some of which were, not. But that's kind of everybody's use of Piazza, and that's the point. And what I really like is when students are asking those maybe not so awesome questions, they can choose to be anonymous to their peers and just ask the question. And if it's a really, really bad question, at least it's been asked and it can be dealt with and it can be fixed. And sometimes they go anonymous all the time, and so I've noticed some users sort of selectively choose to be anonymous at various times, and that's fine. I have it set up so I at least know who's asking what question, so if I see them in office hours, I can sort of follow up with them, which I do on a regular basis. But in any case, it gives you some great sort of user information here. The funniest bit, which I should have anticipated, but I really didn't, was that you can actually chart exactly when we had quizzes and exams in my course by the student usage graph here. Those are the quizzes and exams that I had up until this point. And you can tell that everyone decides to get ready for the exam roughly 24 hours before the exam, which might actually explain some of the student performances. And I keep telling them that this is a really difficult class. You can't memorize it. You can't cram it in. Okay, people don't believe me and just sort of keep trying.
These are automatically dynamically generated.
Yes.
So anytime during the semester you can look at this and the previous one.
Yeah, I've noticed there's about a 48-hour delay sometimes in like when it will display the graph continuation. Like it's not quite real time, and I don't quite understand why or what's going on. But it eventually sort of updates, and you can see the graph as things flow along.
Do you ever show your students these graphs? To kind of show them, like, to kind of, illustrate your point of.
I've shown them this graph. I also made one a few days ago of our first midterm versus Piazza usage. And so I thought there might be some correlation.
Okay.
And there was, but it was pretty weak.
Okay.
I mean, it was a pretty loose correlation. I think it's sort of like mostly self-selecting rather than necessarily this is the secret to success. I think successful people tend to spend time on the course and spend time in office hours and also use this tool. So yeah, they did laugh when they saw this graph because it's funny. And they felt a little guilty and were like, yeah, that was me. So yeah, I did that.